Egypt, land of pharaohs and pyramids, where time itself seemed to bow before the weight of millennia. Yet by the mid-4th century BC, this once mighty civilization was a shadow of its former glory, its people yearning for a savior. From the north, a young king, barely out of his teens, swept across the known world, conquering all in his path. Alexander the Great. His eyes were set on the Persian Empire, and Egypt lay directly in his path. But what awaited Alexander in the land of the Nile was not the fierce resistance he expected. Instead, he found a people desperate for liberation, a culture ripe for transformation, and a destiny that would intertwine his name with the very soul of Egypt. Forever. This is the story of how a conqueror became a pharaoh, a god, and a legend. This is the story of Alexander in Egypt.
By the mid-4th century BC, Egypt was a land where time seemed to stand still. The ancient pyramids, like the step pyramid of Djoser at Saqqara, had watched over the desert sands for over 2 millennia. The legacies of pharaohs like Nefertiti, Akhenaten, and Tutankhamun were already 1,000 years old, their names whispers on the desert wind. Yet Egypt's glory had faded due to foreign invasions and internal strife, leaving its people yearning for revival. In 332 BC, as the sun bathed the Nile in gold, a young Macedonian king named Alexander appeared. Barely in his 20s, Alexander the Great had already carved a path of conquest across the known world. His eyes were set on the Persian Empire, which spanned from the Aegean Sea to India. In just 2 years, he had crushed Persian power in battles like Issus, defeating King Darius III, and had taken the cities of Tyre and Gaza. As Alexander approached Egypt's borders, anticipation hung in the air. The land was under Persian rule, governed by satraps who had oppressed the Egyptians. Memories lingered of Persian kings like Cambyses II and Artaxerxes III, accused of desecrating temples and killing the sacred Apis bull, an affront to Egyptian faith. The Egyptians, burdened by these offences, watched as Alexander's army neared. But instead of resistance, Alexander was welcomed with open arms. Egyptian priests and nobles saw him as a liberator who would free them from Persian domination. The Persian governor surrendered without a fight. As Alexander entered Memphis, the traditional capital along the Nile, the city erupted in celebration. Amid Memphis's grandeur, with its towering temples and bustling bazaars, Alexander showed wisdom beyond his years. He honored his Macedonian heritage by hosting Greek athletic games and musical contests, filling the air with music and cheers. Yet he also immersed himself in Egyptian culture. Most profoundly, he paid homage to the Apis bull, a sacred animal symbolizing kingship and divinity. In the sanctuaries of Memphis, Alexander approached the priests of Apis. The bull, adorned with divine symbols, embodied Ptah in life and Osiris after death. By sacrificing to Apis, Alexander did more than perform a ritual. He bridged 2 worlds. The Egyptians saw in him a ruler who respected their gods and traditions, a stark contrast to past Persian sacrilege. Word spread along the Nile. The new pharaoh honored the old ways. This gesture resonated deeply with the people. In the Serapeum at Saqqara, where massive granite sarcophagi housed mummified Apis bulls, priests might have whispered prayers of gratitude. Though it's uncertain if Alexander visited these catacombs, his reverence left an indelible mark. As the sun set over the Nile, casting shadows across the temples, Alexander stood at destiny's crossroads. Egypt had embraced him, and he embraced its spirit. He was no longer just a conqueror, he was becoming part of Egypt's eternal story. But his journey was far from over. The whispers of oracles and the allure of divine favor beckoned him further. Greater challenges and revelations awaited. a path that would intertwine his fate with Egypt in unimaginable ways. With the Nile receding behind him, Alexander gazed toward the Mediterranean. An idea took root, a city bearing his name, standing as a beacon of knowledge and culture. On shores where sea met delta, he founded Alexandria. Meticulously planned with wide avenues and grand edifices, the city embodied a fusion of Greek and Egyptian aesthetics. It was to be a hub where scholars and merchants from all corners converged. Yet a deeper calling stirred within Alexander, a yearning to understand his place in the cosmos. Tales reached him of the Oracle of Amun at the Siwa Oasis, a mystical sanctuary deep in the Libyan desert where gods spoke through priests. Undeterred by the treacherous journey, Alexander led a small contingent across unforgiving sands. The desert tested them with scorching days and cold nights, but they pressed on, guided by omens and stars. At last, Siwa's verdant palms emerged like a mirage made real. Upon arrival, priests greeted Alexander with reverence, calling him the son of Amun, a declaration that shook him. Entering the sacred temple, he stood before the god's effigy, the air thick with incense and ancient weight. What transpired remains a mystery, but when he emerged, his countenance had changed. The divine had spoken, affirming his destiny not just as a king, but as a god among men. This revelation was more than personal enlightenment. It was a powerful tool. Proclaimed the son of Amun, whom Greeks identified with Zeus, Alexander's authority now had divine backing. This elevated status resonated in Egypt, where pharaohs were seen as gods on earth. Returning, Alexander's army rested along the Nile's banks. Soldiers mingled with locals, stories were exchanged, cultures intertwined. In spring 331 BC, with the Nile rising, Alexander prepared to depart. His gaze turned eastward toward Persia's remaining might, but Egypt had left its mark on him. Evidence of his impact endured long after. In Thebes, at Luxor Temple, artisans carved his likeness into stone. Within the holiest chambers, Alexander was depicted not as a foreign conqueror, but as a traditional Egyptian pharaoh. Clad in royal regalia, he offered tributes to gods like Amun-Ra, his features immortalized alongside ancient rulers. These images were more than art. They symbolized a new era. Alexander's embrace of Egyptian customs signified a cultural fusion that would shape the region for centuries. Egyptians saw in him a continuation of their divine lineage. Greeks found in Egypt a wellspring of wisdom. As years unfolded, Alexandria flourished beyond imagination. The great library amassed knowledge from across the world, becoming a beacon of learning. The lighthouse of pharaohs rose from the harbour, its light guiding sailors, a metaphor for the enlightenment the city offered. But fate is inexorable. At 32, Alexander's life was cut short, his vast empire left without its unifying force. In Egypt, however, his legacy endured. The Ptolemaic dynasty, founded by his general Ptolemy, continued the synthesis of Greek and Egyptian cultures. Cleopatra, the last of the Ptolemies, became a symbol of this enduring fusion. His footprints may have faded, but his influence is carved into Egypt's bedrock. The stories, monuments, and cultural tapestry bear witness to when history was forever altered. Alexander the Great became more than a name. He became a legend woven into Egypt's eternal narrative.
In the heart of the Roman Republic, where the might of eagles cast a long shadow, a spark of defiance flickered. A Thracian warrior, Spartacus, once a free man, now a slave, a gladiator condemned to die for the entertainment of his oppressors. But Spartacus was no ordinary man. He yearned for more than the bloody spectacle of the arena. He dreamed of freedom. This is the story of his rebellion, a story of courage, of desperation, of a man who dared to challenge the might of Rome. This is the story of Spartacus. In the spring of 73 BC, under the oppressive shadow of the Roman Republic, a spark ignited, a spark that would grow into a flame challenging the very foundations of Rome. In the gladiatorial school of Gnaeus Cornelius Lentulus Batiatus in Capua, a Thracian warrior named Spartacus decided that the time had come to break free from his chains. The house of Batiatus was more than a school. It was a fortress prison where men were trained to entertain their captors with brutal combat, their lives hanging on the whims of a cheering crowd. Gladiators like Spartacus honed their deadly skills, wielding weapons ranging from the short gladius to the curved sica, a blade favored by Thracians. In this arena of blood and sand, mercy was rare, and death was a spectacle. Spartacus was not born a slave. Hailing from the fierce tribes of Thrace, modern-day Bulgaria, he was known as Spartakos, meaning famous for his spear. A warrior of noble bearing and formidable strength, he had served as an auxiliary in the Roman army. But the Thracian spirit could not be tamed. Deserting the army, perhaps to join King Mithridates VI in rebellion, he was captured and condemned to the gladiator's life, a fate many considered worse than death. Yet beneath the warrior's exterior lay a keen mind. Plutarch described him as more intelligent and cultured than might be expected of one in his station. Spartacus chafed under the harsh discipline of the gladiatorial school. The constant drills, the punishments for minor infractions, and the prospect of dying for the amusement of others fueled his desire for freedom. By spring, Spartacus and his fellow gladiators had crafted an audacious escape plan. It required surprise and unity. Alone, none could hope to succeed, but betrayal forced their hand prematurely. As guards moved to quash the rebellion, Spartacus led a desperate charge to the kitchens. Armed with cleavers, spits, and whatever they could grasp, they fought their way out in a fierce and bloody melee. 74 gladiators escaped into the countryside, and fate smiled upon them when they intercepted a wagon loaded with weapons, bound for another school. Freedom was not their only goal. They sought vengeance for the humiliation inflicted upon them. Spartacus was chosen to lead the Thracians, while Crixus and Eunomaus commanded the Celts and Germans. They headed for Mount Vesuvius, a dormant volcano that offered a natural fortress and a vantage point over the rich Campanian plains. Rome underestimated them, viewing the fugitives as mere bandits. The Senate dispatched Praetor Gaius Claudius Glaber with 3,000 militia, raw recruits ill-prepared for battle. Glaber besieged the rebels, blocking the mountain's only known path. But Spartacus, ever the strategist, crafted ropes from wild grapevines. Under the cloak of darkness, his men descended the unguarded cliffs, flanking and overwhelming the Roman camp. The victory was swift and humiliating for Rome. As word spread, slaves and disaffected farmers flocked to Spartacus's banner. Their numbers swelled into the thousands, transforming a band of fugitives into a formidable force. The rebels raided the countryside, striking fear into the hearts of landowners. The Senate, alarmed, sent Praetor Publius Varinius, but he too was defeated. Internal tensions began to surface. Spartacus advocated marching north to escape over the Alps, believing that lingering in Italy was suicide. Crixus, driven by overconfidence and greed, insisted on staying to plunder. The rebels split. Crixus and his followers met their demise against Consul Lucius Gellius
Publicola. Spartacus honored his fallen comrade by forcing 300 captured Romans to fight to the death, a grim reversal of the gladiatorial games. Pressing northward, Spartacus defeated the consuls Gellius and Gnaeus Cornelius Lentulus Clodianus, then routed proconsul Gaius Cassius Longinus in Cisalpine Gaul. The road through the Alps lay open, but his men, intoxicated by success and dreams of glory, refused to leave Italy. Some even spoke of marching on Rome itself. Understanding the futility of attacking the well-fortified capital without siege equipment or sufficient forces, Spartacus turned south. The Senate, recognizing the gravity of the rebellion, appointed Marcus Licinius Crassus to crush it. Crassus, a wealthy and ruthless commander, raised 6 new legions. After a subordinate disobeyed orders and suffered defeat, Crassus reinstated the brutal practice of decimation to instill discipline, executing 1 in every 10 men who showed cowardice. Spartacus aimed to escape to Sicily, hoping to incite further revolts. He negotiated with Cilician pirates for passage, but they betrayed him. Trapped in the toe of Italy, Spartacus faced Crassus's fortifications, a wall stretching from sea to sea. Supplies dwindled, and morale waned. In a bold move during a fierce snowstorm, Spartacus's men filled the Roman trenches with earth and debris, breaking through the blockade. Yet divisions persisted. A splinter group led by Castus and Gannicus broke away, only to be annihilated by Crassus. The rebellion's end loomed. Spartacus, ever defiant, prepared for a final stand. Before the battle, he slew his own horse, declaring, "If we win, I'll have many horses to choose from. If we lose, I won't need one." He fought with unparalleled ferocity, cutting down Roman soldiers as he pushed toward Crassus himself. Wounded and surrounded, Spartacus fell, his body never found, a fitting enigma for a legendary figure. In the aftermath, Crassus eliminated 6,000 captured rebels along the Appian Way from Capua to Rome. The ghastly sight, a forest of crosses bearing human agony, served as a grim warning to all who might challenge Rome's might. The stench and horror lingered for months, a haunting reminder of the price of defiance. Yet Spartacus's legacy endured, echoing through the ages as a symbol of resistance. While not a social revolutionary seeking to overturn the established order, his quest for freedom and justice resonated deeply. He was an exceptional man, whose courage and charisma shook the Roman Empire to its core. His story became legend, inspiring countless retellings. The real Spartacus was transformed into a mythic hero, a beacon for the oppressed. As time passed, his tale was woven into the fabric of history.
Thanks for watching. If you were intrigued by this video, you're going to love our next adventure. We're going back in time to 536 AD, when a mysterious fog plunged the northern hemisphere into darkness. Imagine a world where the sun disappears for 18 months, crops wither, and famine grips entire civilizations. We'll explore chilling first-hand accounts from Byzantine scholars and ancient Chinese astronomers who witnessed this apocalyptic event. Using evidence trapped in ancient ice cores, we'll uncover the cause, a colossal volcanic eruption that triggered a devastating volcanic winter. But the darkness was just the beginning. As if things weren't bad enough, the deadly plague of Justinian emerged, pushing humanity to the brink. We'll witness the resilience of those who survived and uncover the lessons learned from this dark chapter in history. Join us as we delve into this ancient mystery and gain a deeper understanding of our planet's delicate balance.
Imagine a world where the sun vanishes, where day bleeds into night, and an unnatural twilight engulfs the earth. The year is 536 AD. A cataclysmic event has plunged our planet into darkness. A mysterious fog descends, shrouding civilizations in a chilling gloom. From the Roman Empire to the far reaches of Asia, a year of unimaginable hardship begins. Crops wither and die. Famine stalks the land, and in the shadows a deadly plague is lurking. This is the story of 536 AD, the worst year in human history.
There was a sign from the sun, the like of which had never been seen or reported before. The sun became dark, and its darkness lasted for 18 months. Each day it shone for about 4 hours, and still this light was only a feeble shadow. Everyone declared that the sun would never recover its full light again.